Hey everyone, it's Kelly. Thanks for joining me today. I am back again with another layout for the Cut Shop. For today's layout, I am going to be using the Stuck On You cut file. I do have a Cricut Design Space tutorial at the beginning of the video. And what I'm doing to start out is I am slicing out a couple of the images from the Stuck On You cut file. And I've done this in previous videos, so this is sped up a little bit, but I'm just inserting a square, laying it on top of the portion of the cut file that I want to slice out, selecting the square and the cut file, and then hitting the slice feature under the layers tab. If you're interested in a slowed down version of that tutorial, I do have a couple other process videos that show that at a little slower pace where it's a little easier to follow. Now in just a moment, I'm going to insert a square to represent my 12 by 12 scrapbook page, so that way I can size my images appropriately. And I was asked on a previous video if I had ever considered using the canvas feature to represent my scrapbook page, and that is something that I have considered. You can see there that I went to the canvas tab, clicked on it, scrolled down till I saw scrapbook and clicked on that, and then it places a 12 by 12 square onto the design screen, and it just kind of is a blocked out area. I prefer to insert a square and resize it to 12 by 12 versus using the canvas feature, mainly because I like the square to be at the very top of the page. The canvas feature inserts it an inch down and an inch in, and sometimes I have a hard time seeing the lines on my computer screen, so it's just easier for me to insert a square. It makes it a little bit bolder when I insert a square and change it to the white, so I'm able to see it a little bit better, so that way I know that my images aren't going to run off the mat when I go to cut them. For today's layout, I am going to be drawing these images onto a sheet of white cardstock rather than cutting them out. It's very simple to do that. All you will do is go to the Layers tab, click on the image. When you click on the image, another toolbox is going to open up. You'll have 4 options at the top of that toolbox, and you want to select Right. That is going to change it to the pen feature rather than the blade when you run the paper through the Cricut. So I know I want to create a row of these images, so I'm just going to copy and paste them a few times and then just position them across the top of that 12 by 12 square. And I'm just going to eyeball the size of them once I get them positioned the way that I like. I am going to mirror a couple of the images so that way the arms of the cacti aren't facing the same direction. To do that, you'll just go to the Edit tab and then click Mirror, and you can see that the arms have swapped positions. I'm going to repeat the same thing for the second image that I have on the screen there, but this time I'm just going to create a row of 3. So now I'm going to start working on sizing the images, and to do that I am going to select all 4 images at the top of the screen just by holding down the Shift key and clicking on each of those images. This will allow me to resize them all at the same time without having to group them together or attach them. The nice thing about doing it that way is you do not have to detach or ungroup in order to shift them around individually to get them in the appropriate position on the design screen and where you want to position them on the cutting mat. Now I want to create another row of images, but rather than copy and pasting those images individually, I'm going to hold down the Shift key and click on all 4 images at the top of the screen and hit copy and paste. And that is going to copy and paste all 4 of the images at the same time. It's super fast, it's super easy. It's a great way to do that if you're trying to fill the page with different images. Once those are copy and pasted, you can position them on the page however you like. They're still individual from each other even though you copy and pasted all 4 images at the same time. So it's super handy, super easy. It's a great way to fill a page. Once I have them where I like them, I am going to click on that white square and remove it. Then I'm going to hit the Select All button, and I am going to attach them. This way when I send them to the cutting mat, they're going to be in the exact position that you saw on the design screen. Okay, so you can see from my actual layout that I ended up creating 4 rows rather than 3, and I ended up using my calligraphy pen versus my medium point pen only because my medium point was dried out and the calligraphy pen was the only pen that I had that was black, so I went with it. I really liked how it looks. It has this really fun sketchy look. Those papers that I was showing you, those were the original papers I thought I was going to use for the layout, but I ended up swapping them out later on. And what I'm going to do for this background is I am going to create some patchwork on the images that you see there just using some acrylic paint. So I just grabbed some paint that matched the papers and I'm just putting it on some packaging, just mixing them until the colors look right. And then I have this foam square that I am applying the paint to, and then I'm just going to start smearing it in random order on the paper just to create kind of an abstract look. And I apologize that my lighting is a little off at the beginning of this video. I had recently purchased some OT lights at Tuesday morning, and I thought that they would help bring a little bit more brightness to my videos, but they changed the white balance on my camera. So I only leave them on for this beginning part. And as I was recording, I was looking up at the camera and noticing that it had kind of a bluish tint to it. So when I actually start the scrapbook process, I turn the OT lights off and I'm just going to use my normal overhead lighting. And while I'm apologizing, I will also apologize for my voice. We have had some weather changes in Indiana recently, and my allergies are kicking in. So I have a very dry, scratchy throat at the moment, and I feel like it's making me a little bit more hoarse than normal. Okay, so back to the layout. You can see that I'm still mixing colors together. I end up using a bubblegum pink, a teal color, yellow, I use a light blue, and then I do come back in with a light pink. And I have no plan for this. It's really just random. I'm just kind of smudging color where I think it will look good. There was no rhyme or reason to it. It was just me having fun with the papers and the paint and just kind of going with the flow and just seeing what would look right. And I wasn't sure when I started this if I was going to use this as my actual background page or if I was going to cut these out and use them as embellishments on the page. And I end up just cutting them out. So I just use a few of them, but I save the rest to use for a future layout or future card or something. But some of the paint went on a little thick and it was kind of hard to tell what the images were. So I tried to cut out the ones that you could still see the black lines through. So you still had an idea that they were actually cacti. And while I'm talking about that, are these succulents or are they cactus? I don't know the difference, and I tried Googling it, and the answer that Google gave me was way more scientific than what I was looking for. I think these are cacti. Do succulents have flowers? Is that the difference between the two? Does anybody know? Am I the only one that doesn't know this? That might be the case. Maybe I'm the only person who doesn't know the difference between the two. So because I don't know the difference, I am going to refer to them as cacti as I make this because I don't think they're succulents, but I really could be wrong. So if somebody knows the answer, please leave a comment below and let me know which way it is. Okay, so I'm almost done getting the paint onto the layout. This light pink is the last color that I am going to use. I am going to allow this to dry. I do use my heat tool just to speed the process up a little bit. But because it's acrylic paint and it's not very thick, it doesn't take very long to dry. So now you can see that I have cut out a handful of the images and I'm really happy with how they turned out. I know that it looked a little wild and crazy when I was applying the paint to the white cardstock, but now that they're cut out and they're kind of brought down to a smaller size, I really like how the colors turned out on each of the images. I've chosen a pink pattern paper from the Maggie Holmes Bloom collection to use as my background. I really like the pink. It matches the images that I painted and it matches the embellishments that I'm going to bring in really, really well. I really wasn't sure where I was going with the design of this layout. I just knew that I wanted to use that cut file and I knew I wanted to use this photo. But other than that, I had no idea where this was going. So it takes me a little while to figure out what I want to do and how I want to place things. I do turn the camera off in just a little bit because I'm struggling to get position of the title, to get position of the images, where I want to put the photo. So in just a moment, I'm going to come back and you're going to see that I have fussy cut out some flowers and also some frames. Those are from the Dear Lizzie Fifth and Frolic collection. It is a older collection. I'm not sure how long it has been out, but when I was going through my stash recently, I came across 3 paper pads of it. So apparently I really liked it, or I didn't realize that I had purchased it and I bought it a couple more times. So I want to use some of it up. So I have fussy cut out some of those frames and now I am just going to cut the center out of those frames. A couple of the frames have a pattern paper design and then a couple of them are just white. I used my craft knife to create an X on the frames that had the white background and I'm just cutting out the center. For the ones that have the pattern paper, I wanted to leave the square intact because I wasn't sure if I would use them on the layout as either an embellishment or a design element. So I wanted to make sure that I did not create a slash through them in case I wanted to use them in the future. Okay, so now that the frames are cut out, I'm going to start playing around with positioning again. I'm still not sure what exactly I want to do. I just know that I want to place those cacti inside the center of those frames, just kind of have them peeking out. I know that I want to use those florals, but I really have no idea where I want to place those either. This photo is a photo of me and my mom. We went on a trip last year, my mom, my dad, my husband, and myself, to Vegas. And one day during the trip, my mom and I took a bus tour to the Grand Canyon, and it was just the two of us, and it was so much fun. And I am so thankful and so grateful that we were able to do that together. It is something that I will remember and cherish always. So I'm so, so grateful that we were able to spend that time together and to witness this amazing, amazing thing. If you've never been to the Grand Canyon and you get the chance to go, you definitely want to go. It is unbelievable. I took a million pictures, but the pictures will never do it justice. All right, so getting back to the layout, I finally decided on how I want to put this together. I've decided to put 2 of the frames on the left, 2 of the frames on the right, and then positioning those floral images on either side of the photo. But before I glue those things down, I wanted to create a little bit of a background behind the photos and all of those elements that I'm going to be using. So I grabbed that light blue paint that I used on the white cardstock when I was painting the cacti images, and I am just creating a wash on the back of this paper, just right behind where the photos and all of those elements are going to be placed. The paintbrush that I'm using was leaving some harsh lines, so I end up using the packaging technique just to kind of smush around the edges, just to make it look a little bit more cohesive and just have a little bit more of a subtle break between the paint and the pattern paper that I'm using as the background. So you can see it's very subtle, but I feel like it just adds a little something extra to the layout. Off camera, I added my journaling to the layout. I had recently purchased a We Are Memory Keepers typecast typewriter. I love being able to type the journaling directly onto a 12 by 12 layout. I'm still practicing a little bit with it, trying to get the spacing just the way that I like, but I really, really like it. I'm very happy that I made the investment. It works really, really well. I was just showing you there that I did add some stitching to those frames just for a little added texture. I've also brought in another ephemera piece. It's that pink square, and it says "This Day Will Never Happen Again." I'm not sure what collection that is from. It was just something that I had in my stash, but the pink matched the pinks that I have going on in the layout really well, and I liked the sentiment that it had on it. It fit the theme of the layout that I was creating, so I added that, and I will add the date stamp to that bottom portion of that ephemera piece where it's kind of blank and open space. It was the perfect place for the date stamp. Off camera, I also added a mat behind my photo, just a simple mat. It's white cardstock and then also a layer of vellum. I was tossing around the idea of doing some layering behind the photo, but I just felt like there was so much going on in the layout already with all of these embellishments and flowers and just kind of everything all over the place that I didn't want to distract too much from the design elements that I had going on, but I still wanted the photo to be the forefront of the layout. I always think that the photo should be the most important part of the layout. It's what I want people's eyes to see first. So I did want to create a little bit of a contrast between the photo and everything else that's going on. And I think that the vellum and the white cardstock did that for me. It looks great. It adds a little bit of dimension and just, just a little bit of something extra to the photo. And I think it really helps it stand out. So as you can see, I am adhering everything down now. I am using liquid adhesive to adhere everything down to the layout. I have found that tape runner does not work very well if you are trying to glue things down to anything that has any type of mixed media on it, whether it's gesso, whether it's acrylic paint, whatever it may be. It just doesn't like to stick real well. So I wanted to make sure that everything was going to stay put, especially once I get it into an album. Nothing is more disappointing than flipping through an album and realizing that all of your embellishments and ephemera have fallen off the pages and are at the bottom of your page protector. So I just wanted to make sure everything was secure. I am going to position a couple more of those flowers from the Fifth and Frolic collection, just kind of right down there around my journaling. The one thing about the typecast typewriter is you do have to almost plan out where you're going to put your journaling, because once there's some bulk to the page, you can't really run it through the typewriter. So you have to be strategic about where you want to place your journaling. And it was a little bit further to the right than what I wanted. I would have positioned it a little bit more to the left, but it's fine. I just added those florals just to kind of cover up that mistake. I have added the title, and it is Happy Adventure, and those come from a couple different Bella Boulevard chipboard sheets. The word adventure comes from the adventure chipboard sheet, and then the word happy comes from the today chipboard sheet. They are white and you can mist them or, you know, add ink to add some color to them. But I decided to leave them white just because of everything that I had going on the layout. I thought that the white stood out a little bit better than if I were to place more color onto the layout. So I am happy that I did leave them white. I did also add some pop dots just to the very top portion of those cacti images. They were wanting to lift off the page anyway, and I like the dimension that it gave the page. So I just added them underneath the stems. Is that what those are? I'm not sure what they're called, but just right under the top portion just to elevate them from the page a little bit. Now I am adding some black splatters, and I also add a couple flare buttons from Pretty Little Studio. It's from the Here Comes the Sun collection. They're a little difficult to see because of the lighting that I have, but you will be able to see them a little bit better in the close-ups. They're just some cacti images, and the colors matched all of the embellishments and the paint and everything that I had on the layout really well. So here you can see the still shots. I will have more information on my blog, which I will link to in the description below. If you have any questions on any of the techniques I used or on any of the cut files, or if you have a Cricut Design Space tutorial that you are interested in, please leave me a comment below. Thank you so much for watching, and I will be back again soon.